There's talk extant about who should run for president in 2028 if our Mussolini doesn't take over. Well, I'd start here. What is wrong with America that needs or can be fixed? That is the job. We will all have a personal list. Mine is long. Others clearly will say, have been saying, Trump. Or the more thoughtful will say, the Republican Party. That is what is wrong. Or if we get rid of Trump, parenthesis, he should be gone if the Constitution were worth more than the papyrus it's written on. So there is that, and parenthesis, they will say, we will be great again. I would say there is much wrong with America. I've covered a lot of it in previous, but the biggest is what it believes about itself, or what we believe about a country, ever any country, as if it's a thing, but it isn't. It's a myth, like any myth. It's just wrong. It is as dangerous for a country as it is for a 5'4" man considering a career in the NBA. There's no virtue in pretending you are something you're not, mostly because it prevents you from being the glory you might be were you to be yourself. America, like many societies, is riddled with this kind of delusion. I could again root this in religion, but not today. I keep doing that. Suffice to say, the US has many problems that whoever is president should be aware of and committed to addressing. Trump at least said there is something fundamentally wrong. He thinks there are not enough white people running the world. I think there are too many, so we disagree on that. But we agree something is up. The Democratic platform, as far as I can grasp it from their media presence, is that Trump is the problem. So no luck there. The Democratic Party has no problem with war, relationship to Israel, or income inequality, to pick but three. And they never have. They have appealed to the victims of inequality to win their votes and have done nothing significant about it since FDR anyway. Why? Income inequality is the essential to the American dream. It's myth. Again, for both parties, because wealth is how Americans judge each other and themselves. If you take away inequality, how would we know where we are, for Christ's sake? They have never campaigned on significant legislation to tax the rich because Americans want to be rich. Oh, good Lord. In other words, we need some real significant personality to be president. Symbolically and substantially, that person should be a woman of color. I think, partly because a white man can't really put his best foot forward because he hasn't got a best foot in this context. Substantively, nor symbolically. There are millions of things to be done that she can do, but none equal to the task of making America great for the first time, which is a laudable goal. I think it is a corrupting one, but it is admirable. The corruption is obvious. Americans think they have been a great nation. You have not. None have. So be reassured you haven't failed at something someone else has done better. I know that is an obsession, but it is a narcissist's obsession and silly. Kamala, on the evidence I have seen, and I keep my ears to the track, is not that woman. When I think of women, black women, I am still caught by Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and the great ones I have known. They are piercing. Michelle Obama, perhaps. The president of America, either gender, needs apparently to be so vanilla on one hand and murderous on the next to sustain the myth, which must break to allow for something meaningful. And breaking that lie will require the giantess she isn't. Or the people can change. Preferable. And I realize it is New York, not Mamdani, that has done the completely unpredictable and miraculous. It has rejected the myth. The next press, I think, will need to do a Mamdani. Allow America to be what it really is, what it would have been had Bernie not been sabotaged by we all know who. It could have been a collective. It could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what it is. Perhaps presidents are meant to be vanilla on the light side, the Democrat side, and I think those presidents are unequal to the task. I think Trump's belligerence and lack of apology is the essence of his success. He is the leader of a certain type, the type that made America as great as Alexander up to his ears in Persian blood. I think we need a Democrat to be a counter, not a caretaker, a heavyweight contender. I think, in my opinion, Obama was the most sheerly talented president of my lifetime. In a bizarre way, he was closer to Reagan than his cohorts, a great communicator. He was the first since John Kennedy to combine charm, conviction, and ability. Kennedy said things critical of his own culture I've not heard since, by the way. The essence of the famous countries worldwide, Bernie always flounders on this. I think he improvises them as the top or the most important countries, both obvious. The essence of this lot is that they are occupiers. The colonials, Europe, expanded west for Lebensraum. There is no difference. Promised lands, God's given country given to the European, a land without a people, the discovery doctrine, manifest destiny, blah, blah, blah. These concepts in action are roughly 500 years old and are deeply embedded in religious exceptionalism, even older, brewing and stewing in the monasteries of Europe, then bursting forth in 1095, but most profoundly and disastrously around 1492 into full-blown occupier syndrome. So when England occupies North America or Israelites Palestine, it is God's will, good, and the way things should be. And Piers Morgan, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump are so steeped in this spiritual habit they are blinded. History is written by the winners, while the losers write poetry. It is written by the occupiers. The occupied are not thought of. King Leopold killed 10 million in the Belgian Congo. Germany practiced its genocides in Namibia. Transatlantic slavery involved some of the most depraved human deeds. It is not until the death camps are opened in 1945 that Europe at last looks at the culmination of its collective behaviors since the late 15th century and enthusiastically, willingly says, the Germans did it. The rest of Europe wipes the sweat off its brows and tries to look innocent, appalled even. What an escape. Now we can do and say that, well, my family never owned slaves, another escape. Nevertheless, Europeans in the America are illegal immigrants. The original deeds of property are signed and sealed by your God's promise, and he only exists for you. That we have assumed this assumption for 500 years does not exonerate us. On a whole, deep, non-monotheistic level, the president of this country might be someone embodying this truth who can acknowledge the occupier legacy and acknowledge that much might be done to become human again. It feels intuitively to me that there is no better candidate than a black woman, but Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and millions that come across my screen are in a better place for that than Kamala. A good American president is the one that draws the veil over our sins, puts the lipstick on the pig. Again, it is how they campaign. You are the best people in the history of the world. Once we're great, let's be great again. Nothing would restore the myth of the shiny city better than a black woman as president. The symbolism would be overwhelming, I think, however, and the substance. I think, however, the nation and the world needs a transformative American president. I felt that with Obama, but he wasn't Tony, nor Alice, nor Fred Hampton. Their intent was to take down and start again, acknowledge the crime, its damage, and recreate, not rebuild. It's true we cannot change the past, but we don't need to endlessly repeat it. Shoring up the legacy and exceptionalism of Western civilization demands so many lies and the continuation of so many injustices that it isn't worth it. The efforts of the media and academia, fierce and funded as they are just failing in the face of failure. When Piers Morgan reiterates, "Do you condemn Hamas?" he is asking, "Do you support the occupier against the occupied?" Of course he does. He comes from the king of the occupiers, that country, who once were occupied and struck back through that ancestor of Hamas, Boudica. The MAGA movement, the Trump, is a fractional roughly 40% manifestation of the whole. He is the face that women and black people and Latinos have seen for 500 years. He exonerates like Maggie Thatcher did, Reagan did. It is Christian, isn't it? Sins forgiven. Well, you have to confess them first and probably promise to not do them again. A tall order for the children of Europe, but there is no other way. Just by the by, someone claimed on Threads that Kamala had called repeatedly for ceasefire in Gaza. I saw that. It didn't fly. You can't hand someone a gun and say, don't use it, and impress me. They were the most pathetic of pleas. I have heard the narrative for years now. If only Bibi wasn't Bibi, Hamas was not Hamas. It is exactly how the occupier washes her hands, blaming everyone else for not putting out the fire she fueled and ignited for 80 years. I think the black woman president must happen ASAP, but she and her people must know what the job is. She will obviously be most essentially a repudiation of Western civilization's foundation, white male supremacy. She must be a revolutionary because she will be the revolution. Oh, that we had a Mia Motley. President of Barbados, I think. I don't think, by the way, that the average European or European American is racist and misogynist, but their myth is. We change that story. The withdrawal will be tough, so best get on with it. You will not die. It is not poison.